and to our south. And we'll be hearing later today that we've got a little more flooding to anticipate and to get prepared for. Unfortunately, that's the downside to warmer temperatures that a lot of people are looking forward to this year. So anyway, we'll go ahead, and I'd like to remind everyone to silence their cell phones. Meeting documents are available for review next to Commissioner Heiberger. Craig or Carol can help you with a listening device if you need one. Routine business, I'd consider a motion to amend the agenda.
Madam Chair, I have a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 14, authorizing the chairperson to sign a memorandum of understanding with SDSU Extension on the 2019 4-H advisory salary, and to move item 12, a brief update on the Human Resources Department and the 2019 annual workforce review, to be placed under item 5 in the routine business agenda as item 5B.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item is a motion. I'd consider a motion to approve the commission meeting minutes from March 12th, 2019.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is I'd consider a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $496,577.73.
Pay the bills.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item, there is a report from the Register of Deeds Office containing the official statement of revenue collected for February 2019. They're for your review. Takes us to item 5, personnel actions. I consider a motion to approve the routine personnel actions.
Motion to approve for the routine action?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to a brief update on human resources. Carrie Deaver.
Good morning, Carrie Deaver from Human Resources. Thank you for your flexibility in the agenda item for me. Today I just want to give you a brief overview of some of the items that are going on in the HR office and what we'll be looking forward to in the upcoming year. Currently for us, no worries. As Trish pulls up, I'll just go ahead and get started. There are a few things that we're focusing on currently. Recruitment has been a big issue for our department over the past year. We're hiring on average about 80 full-time employees a year. So in this environment with low unemployment, a big focus for us is really what can we do to get good quality employees in, and what are the venues for advertising. As you know, a lot's changing on that forefront. So we're trying to keep up to date with different social media advertising sources, looking at really what our employees value in employment here, and marketing those types of issues. The other thing that we're working on is the affirmative action plan. That's that joyful 100-page document that you all review at least one year, or at least once a year. It's a long document. I said that somewhat facetiously, but really does include a lot of valuable information for our department, and looking to make sure that our practices are non-discriminatory, that there's no unintentional disparate impact in any situation, and looking to make sure that salaries seem reasonable based on our employee group. So that's another project we're currently working on. I included employee benefits here. You hear a lot about that from me in the fall when we're setting insurance premiums. That continues to be a big focus for us. You might recall that last year I told you that pharmaceutical expenses are increasing. They're approximately double what they were 5 years ago. So that continues to be a big focus for us on what can we do on the pharmacy side and the claims side. Since I'm going over that briefly with you today, I do want to let you know that unfortunately claims are continuing to rise. I think that we're approaching the end of our 0 or 2 or 3% increases. I anticipate recommending about a 15% increase for budget purposes. Now hopefully we won't need that, but I think there's a good chance that we're going to need all of it. The other thing I wanted to share with you is this is the time of the year that we start looking through our workforce trends. I included in your materials a copy of the entire document that we prepare each year, but today I only wanted to go over a few small items with you. This is a breakdown of our workforce by years of service. Why it's important to us is it gives us a sense really of where our employee groups are. Where are we hiring people? How long have they been here? How, are those employees who are maybe progressing in their years of service with us nearing retirement? And so this chart is a good breakdown of that. One of the things that I take from this is the number of employees that we have at 3 years or fewer years of service. It's a large group. It's a sign of the turnover that we're having. Now, on the plus side, the number of employees who've been with us for over 11 years is also fairly sizable, so we're lucky to have a good group of employees who've been here with us for a long time. Workforce by age. Another reason we're looking at this is just trying to get an idea of our trends for hiring and then also for retirement purposes. And you'll see here that we have about a split, really, of employee groups below 30 and above 30. Trending-wise, we're noticing that our employee group is overall becoming slightly younger, although right now we have an average workforce of around age 42, if you're going to average it out, and our trend as far as years of service is around 9 years. So that will be interesting as we continue to watch what that does. The other item I want to show you is step distribution. This is the reflection of our compensation. Oddly enough, I thought there was an error on our materials because this is the exact same chart you saw last year. Went back and double checked it, it's accurate. So we haven't had a lot of changing in our overall step distribution, but what I find interesting is in that first column of 42%, 19% of our employees are at the base wage, and that's a sign again of turnover and promotional opportunities. Turnover history, this won't surprise you. We continue to inch up there just slightly, not a significant change, but it is going up. And lastly, I want to touch on what our former employees, how they rate the benefits and pay at Minnehaha County. I think we've been fortunate to have good ratings historically, and even an increase from 2017 to 2018 overall. Ongoing and future projects, I didn't touch on Munis earlier, but I think you all are aware that Munis is a large part of our life right now. We're anticipating going live with the HR and the payroll portion of that on July 1st, so we're all in preparation for that. We are in the process right now of dual data entry, so we're using both our old system and our new system concurrently. When I look forward, what I'm excited to see about Munis is that there's an employee self-service module that will allow employees to access information about their pay and their benefits, and we hope to use that. We'll also be able to use that for things like updating disability or veterans information, and we have to do an update for disability every 5 years. And fortuitously, this is the year we have to do it, so this is coming at a very good time for us. Also, we're excited by the open enrollment functionality of that program. We're hoping to do open enrollment electronically this year. Keep your fingers crossed. It might be a bit of a lofty goal, but we think we can do it. Future, like I said, health and other benefits are going to be a big focus for us. Also, training. We continue to try and provide at least quarterly training to employees and managers, and we'll continue to do that and probably looking at bringing in more on-site training in the future. So that's a brief overview. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Carrie? I had a chance to visit with Carrie about this a little bit beforehand. I mean, this is great information. We really appreciate the work that you and your staff do to pull this information together for us every year and helps us in planning as we look forward to budgeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to next item, abatements. Olivia.
There are abatements A through G. I'll go ahead and read them off, hopefully better than last week. First is City of Sioux Falls, parcel 14900, 2018 property tax exempt in the amount of $589.26. Then we have an assessment freeze for parcel 31565, 2018 property taxes in the amount of $374.11. Then C is assessment freeze parcel 32268, 2018 property taxes for $178.01. Item D is assessment freeze parcel 35122, 2018 property taxes in the amount of $779.51. E is assessment freeze parcel 35532, 2018 property taxes 432.12 is the amount. Then item F is Joseph J. Sapinza. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. Parcel 39662, 2018 property taxes in the amount of $6,968.53 for a raised house. And then item G is assessment freeze parcel 19894, 2018 property taxes in the amount of $278.27.
Any questions?
Can we do a motion for all A through G?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item is notices and requests. There are none. Item 8, planning and zoning notices. There are none. Item 9, petition for compromise of lien. Melinda, you get to play 2 jobs today. Congratulations.
Good morning, Melinda Storley, Commission Assistant. The Board of Commissioners considered a petition to compromise lien DPNO 46028 in the amount of $2,142.65 on March 5th, 2019. The Board approved Resolution MC 19-6 to partially compromise the lien only as it applied to the real property with no payment. In this DPNO, the petitioner's ex-spouse and lienee had transferred his interest in the property by quitclaim deed on November 13, 2018. The legal description on the deed was recorded as Lot 2A, Block 13 of Rustic Hills Addition to the City of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, South Dakota, according to the recorded plat thereof. The Commission office has been informed that the legal description on that document was incomplete. A corrective quitclaim deed has been filed and was recorded on March 13, 2019 at the Register of Deeds office with the legal description as Lots 2 and 2A, Block 13 of Rustic Hills Addition to the City of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, South Dakota, according to the recorded plat thereof. In addition, the date the resolution, MC 19-6, was approved by the Commission was recorded as February 5th, 2019, instead of March 5th, 2019. The action I'm requesting today is to consider a resolution to amend Resolution MC 19 for DPNO 46028 to correct the legal description of the real property and the date the resolution was approved by the Commission.
Any questions?
Motion to approve those changes.
Second.
And a second. All in favor? Whoops. Roll call vote. Thank you.
Benega?
Aye.
Heiberger?
Aye.
Karski?
Aye.
Bender?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melinda. This is an opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone here who'd like to speak about something that's not on the agenda today? Looks like we have plenty of people here to speak about things that are on the agenda, so we'll keep moving. Item 10 is an item that I think a lot of people are here for today. It's a briefing on the March 2019 flooding issues. We have the Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Milstead.
Good morning, Commissioners. My part will be brief. Obviously, our first responders and our rescue squad with emergency management were in the process of vacuuming the water out of their rescue trucks when we learned from the National Weather Service about round 2 that we expect coming up shortly. As we're understanding it, this is going to be flooding levels that we haven't seen in decades. In particular, we're looking at our communities like Del Rapids, Baltic, Renner, Brannon, Garrettson. And so Jason Gearman with our Office of Emergency Management is going to update you with some of the details, in particular things like sandbagging, sandbag availability, frequently asked questions. Our plan with the Sheriff's Office is that we will be developing with the assistance of our emergency manager, Jason Gearman, and Craig Dewey with the Commission Office, a frequently asked question sheet that we'll be regularly updating and providing to the public and the commissioners. Questions like, are there sandbags available? Where can I get them? How much does a sandbag weigh? How many can I carry in the trunk of my car without, tearing my the rear end out of my car? Are they available for private people? Are they available for businesses? Where can I get them filled? Does the city provide them? Does the county provide them? A lot of those things are questions that our residents have, and we recognize that we've got a few days now before this starts rolling in particular the north part of our county and communities like Del Rapids. But we also know it's going to impact our rural areas outside there along the river. So if we've got, you know, people in the ag industry that need to move livestock, people that are in areas prone to flooding, even areas that maybe are low but haven't typically flooded, because we're looking at something that we probably haven't seen since the 90s and maybe even before. There's going to need to be significant steps taken by the public. I want to remind the public of you know, some of the issues that we dealt with in this last flood last week, and that's number one, people driving around barricades and people driving through water across the road. It is extremely dangerous. It puts our first responders at risk. It puts the people at risk greatly, especially the volume of water that we anticipate coming down the Big Sioux and Skunk Creek into those basins. Bridges get wiped out, culverts get taken out, and somebody crosses the road and they don't see that a culvert's out or a bridge is out. And then not only is their life an extreme risk, but also the lives of the first responders. So it's not only against the law to drive around barricades, but it's also foolish and dangerous. The other thing we have to remember is there's 800 square miles in Minnehaha County, roughly, and we don't have enough barricades to cover all of the roads that could be flooded. And so we urge the citizens to not drive through standing water or flowing water on roadways. So don't assume that everything's open that doesn't have a barricade on it, because we do not have enough barricades to cover everything that may be covered in a flood event. We work really closely with the highway department, county highway department and DJ, to make sure that we try to cover at least the county highways, but townships struggle, especially in areas you know, prone to flooding, to have enough barricades. And also the amount of water on the road and around the road really causes those township roads, the gravel roads, to be hazardous, and they can be easily damaged by vehicular traffic. So if you don't live on those roads, we would prefer, and we may have to recommend, again, like we did in this last event last week, may have to identify some townships that have decided to close their roads other to people who actually live on those, to try to reduce the damage to the roadway and the danger to the public. Real quickly on last week, if the citizens would have had an opportunity to look in that emergency management operations center set up in the city building, where city and county management worked this event and coordinated efforts both with the city and county and working with the state as well, they would have been impressed. I was extremely impressed with not only the response, but the coordinated efforts of the city, county, and state. And it was, quite frankly, amazing. And there were some stars that I saw in that setting, and the communication that they had between city and county was incredible for us, and it helped us to deploy our resources. As you know, we have a dive team, we have rescue squad members that were doing rescues. The city had fire department with their boats out. We have boats available. Game Fish and Parks had their boats available for us as well. They're other good partners, and I anticipate we'll see that again. One of the advantages that emergency management now operates in the sheriff's office is we were able to take some of our top management people and assign them to the flooding functions during this last one, and they're already working on the next one. That's Captain Bosman, Captain Walsh, are all hands on deck, you know, for that flood and for this one that we're going to see. So with that, Commissioners, I'm going to turn it over to Jason Gierman with our Office of Emergency Management, unless you have any questions of me.
Commissioner Karski?
Just a question, Sheriff. All the flooding that we had this last week, I noticed the city put a lot of vehicles at intersections because they were out of barricades too. Have we put thought into using some of our maybe highway department vehicles or other emergency vehicles as barricades on the more highly traveled roads instead of just putting boards up?
The problem that I have is we have to be able to we don't have very many surplus vehicles. I mean, I almost have none, and especially because I'm looking at taking my detectives, for instance, and warrant task force members and having them uniform up and take vehicles. So about everything I have will be out. And the sooner I can replace a deputy sheriff in a car with a barricade, the better, because the availability of that deputy then to respond and assist is paramount. But yeah, I think I'll let DJ speak to that. I don't know that he has any vehicles that we can leave out there, and if you leave them out there, you kind of have somebody with it.
Of course.
And then and we're all short and using everybody that we can, but.
Any other questions?
Jason Gearman, Minnehaha County Emergency Management. We just pulled up a model here that you can take a look at, but I kind of want to go back to last week and give you a little timeline on what happened. So Wednesday and Thursday were obviously the rain came and caused significant flooding due to the snowpack and the frozen ground. And it was a very unique situation. You know, I'd never heard the term flash blizzard before in my life, and I don't know, it was something, you know, you're dealing with thunderstorms and a blizzard, and they're forecasting this, and it was quite unique. So the rain started coming, the ice broke up, and it started to break up kind of south of the Baltic area. And some of the issues we had was on 254 and 475, which is commonly known as Midway Corner. That road was closed, and that was closed on Friday. Also, I happened to be out there with my emergency management vehicle and the barricade, and I was taking pictures, and a car drove right by me through the water. So what we were planning on doing yesterday morning was getting an update from the hydrologist from the National Weather Service. The flood effort was gone, and we were going to start with the cleanup and what's going to happen in the future with the runoff. Well, the hydrologist come in and said, I have some bad news for you. With the amount of water that's in the snow to the north of us, and what's going to happen over the weekend is the temperatures are going to stay above freezing and probably get into the 50s and 60s here, but that's going to be north quite a ways too, so that water's going to obviously has to come somewhere, and it's going to come south. So in 1969, they said that it was 40,000 CFS during that flood, and they're predicting 30 to 35 CFS right now with this flood. And as you can see the picture up there, I've put in 32,500 CFS. And you can see this is the Del Rapids, and this is a program that the state had been working on with the National Weather Service to show these floods. So if you look at this, it kind of shows Del Rapids, east side of Del Rapids at that 32,500. Now, if we put that up to 40,000 like it was in 1969, it's not, there's a big difference, but it's not a lot. Again, we're predicting, preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. So if you guys have questions as I go through this, just go ahead and ask them. And it might go a little smoother that way too. So this map does not show anything below Renner, and it's programmed for Sioux Falls. So let me go down 248th Street. And it stops, the programming stops there, but you can kind of see what we're looking at for flooding as it comes up. Yes?
Jason, when you go back to Dell's just a second, how much of that area in the flooded area actually has housing? And I mean, I can obviously see some of it does. I'm just wondering if you have an idea of how much of that is housing along the area that's flooded. You see right there all north of that Sioux River. Is there anything on the south side too? And
there's houses all the way along 2nd Street, Orleans Avenue, Liddell. The farther south you get, it's more of a industrial area. And then obviously the land rises again, but I can't tell you how many houses are in there, but there are a considerable amount of houses, so. Some of the efforts we're doing right now, we've been in contact with McCook County, who's given us 20,000 sandbags. We had them delivered yesterday. Lake County has offered another 20,000 from their stockpile. I've ordered another 50,000 through the Corps of Engineers. That should be delivered today. What we've been instructing people to do is to make arrangements to protect their property and plan ahead. So our intention here, and a lot of these questions have not been clearly answered yet on how we're going to proceed, but the intention now is to provide these sandbags to the cities in the area and then have people come into these cities to get a certain amount of sandbags that they think they need. The organization of that has the final touches haven't been completed yet on that, but that's kind of the intention of the sandbag. Now, we don't have the resources to deliver sand to people, so people are also going to have to find sand. And what's happened in the past, especially in Renner, who has a lot of experience with this, what they've been doing is they will get a stockpile of sand, they'll set up a station, people from the city that want sandbags can come fill their own sandbags, take them home and bag and do what they need with them. So we're trying to use that model throughout the rest of the county, Baltic, Del Rapids. Those people know their volunteers. You know, there's church groups, football teams, basketball teams that I think are going to come out and help these communities. I'm still going to be in contact with the National Weather Service because things could change. Again, this is all a prediction, and it has to do with the moisture that's in the snow, and they're predicting that. But what they're doing is they're sending people out to take samples north of here to get a more accurate picture of what could happen. They're looking at Monday late afternoon to Tuesday sometime when the peak in Del Rapids will be. Any questions so far?
Any questions for Jason? So this model that you're using right now, is that something that's available to the public if they want to go on and try to see if their house is?
Yep, I think that was one of the agreements at the company that did this, that it had to be available to the public, so.
Okay, and how could the public get a hold of that if they
It
wanted
is
to?
BigSiouxFIS.org.
Maybe we could put a link on the county website to that.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
So just kind of to reiterate what I went through, they're looking at that severe to moderate flooding. And then we've also got to think about the Minnesota area, the Pipestone area. There's a lot of snow up there too. So Brandon with the Split Rock Creek is going to be affected also. So I have a fire chiefs meeting on Wednesday night, and we're going to have that in Brandon so there's a little more room. And we're going to try to invite as many people from the cities as possible to get everybody on the same page and get the information out to them. And I'm hoping to hear back from some cities today and start getting sandbags on the move to where it's needed.
So folks that want to volunteer, call 211.
211 has been a lifesaver so far. They're looking for volunteers. They're looking for donations. I know the focus has been on the city of Sioux Falls. However, 211 is also a program that the county can use it's just as useful for the county as it is for the city.
Other questions for Jason? Commissioner Karski.
Just an encouragement, sandbagging is a lot like insurance. You can't do it after the flooding started. You need to get ahead of it. So waiting till Monday afternoon to say, oh boy, I better put sandbags out, isn't going to cut it. Better get it done early.
And that was a unique situation, you know. One of the requests for the last flood was everybody wanted sandbags right now, and the flood was already here, so it wasn't going to do any good to sandbag at that point, and we just didn't have the resources to start setting up these stations. Now we have enough time to start setting this plan in action, so hopefully people will use this and prepare. And again, I've said it enough: stay out of the running water and quit driving through barricades.
Commissioner Benninga.
Jason, are there any other counties in the region that are not affected by the floods that we can borrow the other equipment that we might need to have?
What
or
we
not?
have is that's part of the emergency operations, and part of my job is to work with the state. And I have a guy with me from the state that's at my side. I wanted him to come here. He's not a media guy, so he's decided to stay at the EOC. But what he's doing is helping us find resources from the state. And, you know, we have a region here, so like I said, I got the sandbags from Lake County, McCook County. The equipment really isn't an issue right now. We need to look in the future at maybe buying a sandbag machine.
How about the barricades to get some where we need to have them, even if unfortunately people don't pay attention? That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it is what it is. There's just not enough barricades to go around. We could buy tons and tons of them, and people are still gonna go through them, unfortunately. Jersey barriers, we've been contracting with a company out of Sioux Falls for Jersey barriers, and Renner's got about 20 or 30, and we advise people to stay out of Renner, but they've got a pretty good operation up there. It's something to see how they do things, so.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, I just want to thank you and your staff, the whole team that's been working on this. You guys have put in long hours and really difficult conditions, and I echo what the sheriff said. I don't think people realize what goes into an effort like this, and I just really want to thank you and your team.
All right. It is a team effort, trust me. No one person can do this on their own, so.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So DJ, do you want to give any update on?
Mike and Jason hit on most of the points I was going to talk about. We have struggled with keeping enough barricades on hand at certain times during the last week or week and a half. We have been out actively moving road closures around every day, not all day every day, but quite frequently as the waters rise and go down in different spots. But we've done a pretty good job, I think, of keeping our GIS system updated. Our planning office here at the county has been actively updating any road closures that the highway department does, and that's integrated into the interactive GIS page that the city uses too. So if anybody in this area has any questions about local transportation closures, they can go on that same website and see everybody's closures. So that's been really nice, something that's new that we haven't done in the past. Moving forward into next week, we are going to try to get some more barricades on hand. We're doing a bunch of repairs on barricades that were busted and broken throughout the last week. And we have our own sandbags at our department that hold down those barricades and do some other things for us that we're replacing that were destroyed over the last week or so. Other than that, just like they said, encourage people to stay away from any moving water. We've got countless stories of people driving around us and going right into rushing water over the road. So it's important. It is very dangerous to go into rushing water. It's important to stay out of it. Just find a different way or delay your journey.
Any questions for DJ? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we got a challenge ahead of us, but we'll get it done. The next item is item 11, and we have a presentation from Julie Hofer in the Office of Public Advocate.
Thank you, Commissioners. Julie Hofer, Director of the Public Advocate's Office. I have brought for you the annual report for the Public Advocate's Office for 2018. Just a brief history. The office was opened approximately 20 years ago. The objective of the office is to save the county money by taking conflicts from the public defender's office that would normally be outsourced to outside attorneys. The office has grown over the years. We now have 7 attorneys and 2 paralegals and 2 office assistants. So it has grown quite a bit from when it was opened 20 years ago. I have the numbers for last year down for you to see. We opened pretty much the same amount of cases as we had in 2017. We did not get quite as many cases closed as we had in 2017. I attribute that to some of the cases that we have, such as A&Ns, abuse and neglect cases, habeas appeals. Cases of that nature can take 1, 2, even 3 years to finish. So there's not a high turnaround for those. The misdemeanor and felony cases, we're pretty much even there in terms of how They are dispersed. We got about, well, I guess about 100 less felonies than misdemeanors that were closed. The juveniles were about the same as well as the habeas and appeals. The A&Ns, the 17 was a lot lower than the year before, but as indicated, once a case like that starts, it could take 2 to 3 years to come to an end, while the state is working with families to try and reunite them with their children. As I did last year, I put some of the guidelines in here in terms of what a maximum caseload is for any attorney, and then I put our numbers into that. We have 7 total attorneys, including myself. From the number that we closed last year, the standards would say that it should be handled by approximately 8.5 attorneys. At this point, just looking forward, Mark and I have been sitting down just doing some preliminary numbers for the budget, the upcoming budget hearings. I don't anticipate any big requests coming to the commission this year. We are, although the caseload is high, we are able to handle it. I counted up, of the 7 attorneys in the office, there's a total of 70 years of service to the county doing criminal defense work. So our office is able to handle the caseload due to the experience and the number of years that the attorneys have been doing this sort of work. Any questions for me?
Questions for Julie? All right, well, we appreciate your work and we appreciate this report. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so that takes us to item 13, to authorize the chairperson to sign an agreement between Minnehaha County and Lincoln County for Lincoln County Human Services Case Management. Jamie Phelps, good morning.
Jamie Phelps, Minnehaha County Human Services, good morning. So what we're seeking here is to renew our annual contract to provide casework services for Lincoln County. And this is a 60-40 position, so Lincoln County pays 60% of the position and Minnehaha County for 40%. There are 2 basic changes or amendments in this contract. And by the way, the contract will commence on April 1st for the new year. But the 2 changes are a modest increase in personnel expenses for the position, salary, benefits. And then there is a small decrease in cell phone expenses because IT was able to get a better deal on cell phone package deal from the service provider. So those would be the only 2 changes. And so we're seeking to renew that contract and continue to provide those services. It's been very helpful over the years to have access and accessibility for people in southern Sioux Falls in the Lincoln County area to have access to the Sioux Falls office here rather than going all the way down to Canton. And we've had a presence both here in Sioux Falls and in Canton with this caseworker. So it's kind of the best of both worlds to be able to better serve the Lincoln County residents down there and also provide some extra services for Minnehaha County here. So.
Any questions for Jamie?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. This is a great example of collaboration and how we can work together and maximize resources for both Lincoln County and Minnehaha. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice week.
All right, that takes us to item 15. Consider a motion to authorize the Highway Department to purchase 2 tandem axle trucks. DJ Boothie was here somewhere. I think he has the next 3. There he is. Thanks, DJ. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. It's important to keep the public informed of what's going on, so.
It looks like this request is to purchase 2 tandem axle trucks from the Minnesota State bid. This is part of our regular replacement program, or what we'd like to have as a regular replacement program. Two trucks that we're looking at replacing right now are a 2005 Sterling with 152,000 miles and a 2007 Sterling with 187,000 miles. Our tandem axle trucks, which are dump trucks or snowplow trucks, are supposed to be on a 9-year replacement program. The lead time for these types of vehicles or equipment right now are 15 to 16 months. And so putting these in service in mid-year 2020 would be a realistic time frame, would put these at 15 and 13 years old. And so a little bit beyond the replacement time frame that we would ideally have, but it's what we have. So these trucks that we're requesting to purchase right now are just the shell of the truck or the chassis of the truck, and the costs are $111,156 and $110,781 for a combined total of $221,937. And the cost difference between the two trucks is because we only got one owner's manual, and that just was assigned to one of the vehicles. These Freightliner trucks are a little bit less than what we purchased last year, just with pricing differences from year to year. The local vendor that we use through the Minnesota State contract is I-State Truck Center, and there's a whole bunch of information on purchasing off the Minnesota State bid in the agenda packet, and I can stand by for any questions that you might have.
Questions for DJ? Commissioner Karski.
What's going to be the salvage value on those older trucks, DJ? Any idea? How do we typically do on that?
I think the last ones that we sold were 12,000 and 14,000.
Okay.
And really it's hard to say. Some of them are usable, and then some of them are not usable because the replacement won't actually occur until mid-2020. We're looking at these two trucks, the 529 and 539 trucks, as what we would like to replace, but in 15 or 16 months a lot can happen to an older snowplow truck, and so it could be a different truck that ends up getting replaced and have zero salvage or zero value, just a salvage value. Salvage value on something like this, if it were just to go to TJN or something like that, is probably $3,000.
Okay. And these trucks we're buying and looking at putting in service, we're going to have them in service to the year 2033, 2034?
If we
probably?
put them in service in mid-2020, the plan would be to replace them in 2029.
2029, okay.
Yeah, for a 9-year service life. Now, granted, there are a lot of different vehicles that we have in our fleet that we don't purchase brand new vehicles for. An example would be like a water truck, an oil tanker truck, spare snowplow truck or wood chipper truck. Those vehicles are recycled snowplow trucks. And so after 9 years, if these are in pretty good shape and we need something to replace one of those vehicles, we'll pull the body off of it and replace it with like a wood chipper truck body, for example.
Okay.
But the life expectancy for a snowplow truck in our fleet is 9 years.
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion. Or I got a roll call vote. Sorry, motion.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Hiberger,
Aye.
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Takes us to item 16. Let's consider bid results and award recommendation for microsurfacing. DJ Boothie.
Commissioners, as part of our pavement management projects that we do every year, we let a microsurfacing project on February 27th. 5 bids were received. Of those 5 bids, the low bid was from Missouri Petroleum at a cost of $863,985.84. There were no bid anomalies this time around with this project. Our cost estimate was $831,572, so fairly close to that low bid amount. A couple interesting facts about the bids this year. Last year we saw a 21% increase in the microsurfacing jobs that we bid, and this year with this one we'll see another 20%. So in 2 years, a combined 41% cost increase on our microsurfacing. And I can really just blame that, I guess, if you want to call it that, on the increase in cost of oil. That's been throughout all of our projects that utilize oil. So It's a pretty big cost increase, but at $800 and some thousand, it's still a very effective treatment for our asphalt roadways, and we're hoping to move forward with this contract. I can stand by for any questions. Otherwise, I would ask for your approval of the contract with Missouri Petroleum Company.
Commissioner Benega.
DJ, there's been a lot of communication and public relations on what POET's doing with a program called Jive, and it's recycling materials and cutting the cost of petroleum by millions or billions of dollars. Have we participated in any of those conversations about what they could do to help us? Because they're looking for projects to use as, I guess, promotional kinds of activity. And they're talking about the fact that they expect this to be a worldwide project that'll save and process billions of dollars of revenue, not only for them, but save almost the same amount of dollars?
It's a great question. So a few weeks ago, I saw the first kind of advertising for this type of project, and so I reached out to POET, said, hey neighbors, what's going on? We'd love to learn more.
Yep.
And the response that I got back was right now it's for more of asphalt rejuvenation uses, and this is not an asphalt rejuvenation type of project.
Okay.
And so I think that there's definitely some potential, according to my conversation with them, some potential for it to impact projects like microsurfacing or chip seal or actual asphalt. And so I think that there's something in the future, but right now it's geared towards a different type of project.
Okay, thanks. Obviously would be good to stay in touch with them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Other questions?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Karski,
Yes.
Benega,
Aye.
Hiberger,
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to item 17, chip sealing. DJ.
Commissioners, also on February 27th, we received 5 bids for the chip seal project. And this year we're looking at doing just under 36 miles of chip seal. Bituminous Paving was the low bid. Their bid amount was $1,122,839.20, which was about $80,000 or so higher than our engineer's cost estimate. Our cost increase from last year on this is about 38%, so pretty high increase from what we were looking at last year. But certainly we expected a cost increase. Our engineer's estimate was about 7% lower than the actual bid. So we were looking at having some cost increase. We really weren't sure what they were going to be. We still think that this is a project worth moving forward. Even with the higher costs, it's an important part of our payment management plan, and it will certainly result in a longer useful life of our asphalt pavement if we continue doing our chip seal program. So with that, request your approval to move forward with this contract.
So move.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Heiberger, you have a comment?
Yeah, question, comment, and I'm fine with approving it. I wasn't trying to circumvent that. 122, I think, is one of the roads that's had a lot of road closures or barricades up because a significant amount of water flowing over those. I'm just wondering about the condition of the road going forward. That's not the only one. I mean, as you drive around highways in the county, they have suffered immensely from this freeze and water and stuff. Maybe you could speak specifically about or we're going to be chip sealing and stuff, and how will that affect what's happened, and are we going to have to do more repair before the chip seal, or?
The roads have really taken a beating over the last 3 weeks or so. We've been putting a ton of miles on, just doing some windshield inspection, if you want to call it that. And we're not sure yet, because we're not through the spring, how the pavement is really going to be in April or June, or April or May, when we start looking at actually starting these projects. My guess is that we have unit prices on all of these. I don't think that we're going to be doing more or less of the microsurfacing unless we have a road that really washes out and has some major flooding coming up. But the chip sealing, we could easily do more or less of that to try to account for damages that are still yet to come. The pavement is in pretty rough shape right now. We put on load limits on Monday, and we're seeing a lot of our thermal cracks raveling up. If you can understand how a rabble might come up on both sides like that. And so that's an indication that the subgrade temperatures and the pavement temperatures are rising quite a bit, and they're susceptible to damage when that happens, so we have to put on load limits. If we do have a lot of traffic and additional flooding and heavy loads on those roads when they're rabbled and when they're thawing out like that, we can cause quite a bit more damage. And so chip seal is not necessarily the fix for that, but it certainly can cover up some of those issues and make it drive a little bit better. But we're going to have to continue to do some inspection before we move forward with these projects in the construction phase, and make sure that we're chip sealing the right roads and we're patching the right roads. I would foresee our in-house crews doing more patching than we had anticipated after the weather that we've been having in the last few weeks.
Commissioner Heiberger?
It isn't really related to chip sailing, but as I drive in the country, just coming to work, I'm not looky-looing like a lot of people are. You just see a lot of the bridges that the water is already right at the bottom of the bridge and stuff, and so I'm just asking about bridge integrity at this point. And obviously, we do bridge inspections, I believe, every 2 years. Because of a flood event like this, will there be more or sooner bridge inspections as some of those that have had experienced the high water levels?
We'll continue to evaluate on a daily basis those bridges that we know of that are susceptible to the flooding. And right now, that's darn near all of them.
Yep.
But there's certainly some ones that are scour critical that we know that can have issues when we have higher flows. And so we've been looking at those on a regular basis. We'll continue to do that. Our bridge inspection cycle for our normal inspections won't change, but we'll put more effort into our flood response inspections.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Good questions. Commissioner Karski?
DJ, a lot of the cost of these contracts is because the increase in, as you said, the petroleum-based products. And I know that we had an asphalt plant explosion. I think has it been a year ago already?
Year and a half ago.
Year and a half ago. And I don't keep track of asphalt plants on a daily basis, but I mean, are we going to be seeing some relief? Is that industry going to be able to meet demand going forward?
We've been tracking asphalt prices or oil prices that we use in the asphalt really closely the last 6 months or so, just anticipation for the 2019 construction year. They have come down the last month or 2 months, not nearly as much as we would like them to come down. We've still seen the increases of 20 and 30% in our asphalt projects that we've bid up to this point. So we wish they wouldn't have risen that much, but I don't expect that they're going to be going down any further. And I'm not an asphalt oil guy, and I hate to really speak for that industry, but for me, it just doesn't pass the smell test. That one plant explosion changes the whole pricing structure for the entire Midwest. There's several plants that service the Midwest, and so I think that there's more to it than just the one explosion. I think that there's just asphalt or oil in general has seen an increase, and that's reflected in the asphalt prices. So we do keep in pretty close contact with the asphalt oil salesmen, the company that we do business with, and so they kind of keep us in the loop on what we should expect for pricing and when's the best time to bid, and so we feel like even though we've got the prices that we've got, they are good competitive prices for 2019. I don't know if they're going to go down in 2020 or not. I would sure hope so, but I'm not sure. We have a reconstruction project that we're going to be bidding here next month on County Highway 137, which is just north of Crooks. That's about 6 miles of asphalt work, and so we've been really keeping tabs on the oil prices so we can make sure we get decent prices for that. As part of that project, we've added an alternate bid to supply a concrete pavement, and so it's going to be competitive. We're going to do a cost analysis for life cycle in order to award that contract. Honestly, it's going to be difficult for concrete to compete with asphalt pavement on a road that already has the aggregate base course installed, because they would otherwise have different sections designed, so there would be less gravel or less base course on a concrete section, but the aggregate base is already in place, and so it's going to be difficult to compete, but with the uncertainty of asphalt prices, we wanted to make sure that we were getting the best value for the county, and so we decided to add that concrete alternate.
Other questions? All right, I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Benega?
Aye.
Hiberger?
Aye.
Karski?
Aye.
Bender?
Aye, motion passes unanimously.
Thank
And
you.
thanks again to you and your team as well. I know you guys were crazy busy last week with the flooding, and this week looks like there'll be no rest for you guys. So we thank you to all that work as well.
Thank you. Our guys have been putting in a lot of hours and working very hard, so we appreciate it, and I'm sure the guys appreciate it too.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Item 18, legislative update. Craig Dewey. Good morning.
Good morning, Craig Dewey, Commission Office. The legislative session has one day left, which is veto day. As you are aware, the legislature passed its final budget before the snowstorm kicked in. I think it was around 12 or 12:30 at night that they finally wrapped up. There are a number of bills that the governor still has on her desk, considering for a signature veto. I'd just like to quickly touch base and highlight one in particular. It's Senate Bill 8 that would provide funding for statewide 2-on-1. That bill was amended at the end of the legislative process to work on a 50% state match to bring individual counties online. I have been in coordination and conversation with Janet Kittams, the executive director of the Helpline Center, and she indicated to me that the governor has still yet to sign that bill, but I will be following up with her to provide a more robust update for you regarding the final amendments that were made to that legislation. And then the other bills that I really wanted to highlight for you, there were questions regarding the pipeline bills. That would be Senate Bill 189 and Senate Bill 190 in regards to potential extraordinary expenditures due to protests or other concerns with pipeline construction that we're seeing in North Dakota, and certainly could potentially impact South Dakota counties as well. So one thing that I'd like to specify is in the session there was also consideration to lower the 2 mill levy requirement that counties needed to expend before they could qualify for state aid in responding to disasters. That law is still in place, but very separate from the discussion that we're having about pipelines. Senate Bills 189 and Senate Bill 190 specifically impact extraordinary costs with the pipeline construction, so that 2 mill levy requirement does not apply in the situation with these extraordinary pipeline expenses. These bills are set up as a temporary fund that will sunset at the end of fiscal year June 30, 2025, if the funds are not used, but therefore covering law enforcement costs, which are approximately 85% of the costs experienced in North Dakota from the different expenditures that they had for public safety concerns. As part of that, the pipeline companies themselves are required to deposit a surety bond for $1 million for every 10 miles of pipeline. However, there is a cap to not exceed the initial deposit amount of $20 million. Local governments, such as the county, can submit expenses as they occur for receiving claims and payment from the state. The state has established a process that requires a 45-day response in terms of evaluating the claims. Certainly, there is a pre-approval process that can happen with that as well, and for that mechanism to work, the counties need to be in touch with the state, and it would run through the Department of Public Safety is the ultimate determiner of what expenses will be covered. The one exception that these bills do not cover are court-appointed attorney's fees. Those, again, 85% of the expenditures that North Dakota experienced in this process were specifically law enforcement related, and so Senate Bills 189 and 190 do cover the specific law enforcement expenditures. And certainly counties will continue to be in touch with each other as situations develop to provide mutual aid, and there is a process to work out some of that cost sharing if one county is providing resources to another county. With that, though, I would be happy to answer any questions specifically about the pipeline bills here, and then we can maybe move on to the broader legislative update if there are questions.
Commissioner Karski.
The $20 million bond, is that to cover the law enforcement costs? It's not for like cleanup or spill or anything like that, is it? Or
It
does
would-
it cover both?
That's a good question. So the funds would pay for costs related to the public safety response to the pipeline construction. So if you're looking at a specific, like, it sounds, if I'm understanding you correctly, what if there happens to be an oil spill during construction? That would be governed by a separate set of laws and administrative rules. Senate Bills 189 and 190 are focused on dealing with the extraordinary expense of protesters or other disruptive activity that would occur.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay.
And then if you do have questions about the broader legislative update, I'd be happy to field any of those as well.
Commissioner Heiberger.
I just have one. So that bill, it's kind of related, but not, but that bill was started out as a changing that 2 mil levy for disasters. So that has been taken out of the bill. But the problem, well, maybe the problem is that that 2 mil levy for, or 2 mil threshold for the county is still extremely high and would, I think, bankrupt us. I don't remember. You'd have to tell me the numbers because I just looked, I couldn't find it.
Around $28 million for Minnehaha County.
And a disaster just doesn't have to be a pipeline issue. It can be a flood. And so that fund still doesn't help in case of a disaster, and we don't know what our disaster would be, and maybe it's not going to be $28 million, but we'd still be on the hook for that before the state would step in unless there was, I'm assuming, some disaster declaration, and then I don't know how that affects the 2 mills. And so I'm actually kind of throwing some questions out to you, Craig, that maybe you can just answer later.
I do have some information. I could answer them for you now, if you would like. As far as the 2 mil levy expenditure, whether it's Minnehaha County, which 2 mills is approximately $28 million, or another county, Bennett County is an extremely small county with about 100 taxpayers. Whatever that 2 mil requirement, it would be crippling to every county to have to exceed that expenditure amount before being able to benefit from state aid. Additionally, I'll be able to provide a further update for you later, but we'll see what impact the coming floods have, if there would be need for a disaster declaration for the county to be able to qualify for certain state and federal aid efforts. Water provides, there are just a number of more options that are available through the federal government as well when you're dealing with an impact of flooding compared to some other emergencies. But those discussions are being had, and like I said, we can provide some further information for you as the situation develops and necessitates.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, Craig, very much.
Thank you.
That takes us to item 19, liaison reports. Commissioner Heiberger.
I am going to report on the NACO legislative conference that I went to, and I basically kind of read some bullet points, and I'm going to go through the bullet points quickly for you, and then Dean and I also attended a meeting yesterday I was going to update you on. So the first week of March, I attended the NACO legislative conference in Washington, D.C. There were approximately 2,000 elected or appointed attendees at the conference, and I sit on the Justice and Safety Committee on the national level. And so the resolutions that were discussed and passed out of our Justice and Safety Committee were reforming the bail and reducing disparities in the criminal justice system. A resolution urging FEMA to conduct an assessment and develop an improved plan for the FEMA individual assistance programs. We had a lot of communities that were talking about disasters just like what we may possibly have and that the troubles that they'd have, and so that was actually very timely. There was a resolution urging FEMA to declare or to clarify the FEMA debris removal guidelines for private roadways and gated communities. And I found this very interesting because for us that would be people that have road districts in their little community, like one of your subdivisions that has a road district and they take care of their own roads. This particular community had an issue with a tornado, and it had done a significant amount of damage in a road district area for them. And there was a big question is, who pays for this, the county or FEMA or the road district? And they did a lot of arguing and fighting back and forth, and eventually the county picked up all the stuff because the residents couldn't do it even though they were responsible for their roads in their road district. And FEMA was not clear at that point as to who was going to pick up the bill for it. So I know we have a lot of road districts, and it was a very interesting question. And when this is all over, maybe we'll have more questions about what FEMA actually does with that. But when you listen to other counties and you hear some of these issues are actually issues that we could face that we wouldn't know the answers to either. So that vote on that resolution urging FEMA to declare was actually a divided vote. We have a lot of emergency management people that sit on our FEMA group, and there was a lot of questions about how that would move forward. We also had a proposed resolution urging FEMA to coordinate with the local government stakeholders on the FEMA after action reports. The same committee was frustrated because they felt like they weren't at the table when FEMA was done with the project and telling them what actually the report said. And so there was some concerns about that and quite a bit of discussion on that one also. In our committee meetings, they also gave us updates on federal funding that would be available and legislation that was specifically relevant to the Justice and Safety Group that I sat on, and discussed a number of firearm bills that are currently in Congress, and we're given some updates on some of the things with that. And also, quite interestingly, we talked about flood insurance. And this was the first week of March, and so we weren't looking at flooding quite yet then, and they just they just said, what is the percentage of people in your county that are carrying flood insurance? There's a website, it's too late for us this year, but there's a website called floodsmart.com, and you can go on there and you can put in your value of your property and find out what the insurance would cost you, give you an idea of what flood, and they tell me, and you would speak better to this than me, that flood insurance is not that expensive when you compare it to what you're going to lose if you have a flood. So that was an interesting conversation. Then the next days when the opening exercises for the convention started, we had Senator Ernst from Iowa spoke at the convention opening ceremony, and he stated that contrary to what we're hearing in the news, bipartisanship is well and alive, and he cited several bipartisan projects that they'd worked on as far as infrastructure, the Farm Bill, the Canadian-Mexican free trade agreements. We had Alexander Acosta, Secretary of the Labor. He discussed an apprenticeship program that the government has been pushing, and stated that the wages that the employees coming out of these apprenticeship programs have been excellent, and he cited numbers of like 28 and up per hour wages. Their goal in this program is to have about 1 million apprenticeships completed. They have a grant out there of about $150 million that they are making available to community colleges, with matching funds from local partners in the community to push forward these apprenticeship programs. He also said that we are currently in the fastest wage increase in over 10 years, and 6.5% of those increases in compensation are for the lowest wage earners, and in the last couple of years, and that 70% of the new hires that we are seeing nationally are people that have never worked before. He talked about a reentry program, as in jail reentry, people that coming out of jail, getting back into the workforce, and the Department of Labor has been providing training or increased their training for people that are in treatment for injuries. He also talked about incentivizing employers that would consider keeping an employee who is in drug treatment as long as they were complying with all the measures. He said you may have a high-level executive or high-level employee that got into trouble with drugs and is in trouble with the law, and he said you hate to lose that employee if they're valuable, but if they're complying with all the treatment measurements and stuff, is there a way you can keep them on as employer, and they're providing incentives, and it sounded like a good program. Department of Labor is also encouraging states to look at licensures. It doesn't apply really specifically, well, maybe it does to us here because we have a military base here on town too, but to encourage states to look at military spouses who come in temporarily to a region, I'm thinking Ellsworth Air Force Base, and these licensed spouses are not licensed in South Dakota, but they might be licensed in Texas, and they're current and their licenships are good. He said, come into a state and the state says, well, you don't have our license, so you can't practice here. And they're looking to try to get states to open up those licenses just specifically for military spouses, that if they're in good standings in the state they are and don't have any infractions on their licensure in that state, that they would be able to temporarily practice in our states. I think they're talking, well, anything with a licensure, and I could list a bunch of them. But so that was an interesting conversation. The National Sheriff's Association announced a partnership with NACO, and they will be studying Medicare in jails for pre-conviction, and they're going to be offering solutions to Congress. And that was a big topic, and they had an open session up at the Capitol, which I was not able to attend, to have further discussion on that. And I'm assuming we'll hear more from that from NACO and the National Sheriff's Association coming in the future. Kellyanne Conway spoke too about bipartisan support for the opioid bills, and also talked about fire stations in many areas are now being designated as safe solutions for people with overdoses. I don't know that we're seeing that here specifically, but it's a place where if you're in an overdose situation or a drug situation, you could go to a police station for help and not be necessarily arrested for your situation. Ben Carson talked about affordable housing. That's what this little card was from. These were some of the cards that his staff threw out. I was able to grab a couple off my table to bring back. And the need to revisit regulations in housing and how it's increased the cost of housing by 25 to 40%, and that some of our regulations are extremely outdated. HUD is increasing their multi-level housing availability. This card talks about the opportunity zones, where it would give tax benefits to developers that want to come in and help to develop opportunity zones. There are actually opportunity zones in Sioux Falls and in our area. They're all over the United States, and they help to get some of this housing situation fixed by giving tax credits back to people who want to get involved with opportunity zones. Because I looked it up on the internet, and we actually have opportunity zones in Sioux Falls. Just a couple more things. Steve Case, he's promoting something called Rise of the Rest. I looked this also up on the internet. It's easy to find. And it's investment capital in beginning stages for new businesses that are located outside of Silicon Valley, New York City, and Boston. And it's a group of entrepreneurs and executives and investors that are looking for new ideas of businesses to start up. And they are going around the United States on a promotion tour, and that's why they were in D.C. and we got to hear them. But another great website to look if you're looking for some kind of help with starting up a new business. I also went to a data-driven justice session. It was a special invitation. We did bring Jill Franken from South Dakota and somebody from a state's attorney's office too, I believe it was. No, it was one of the judges came along with us, and we had roundtable discussions about tree trial diversions and funding for crisis response teams, which would be our triage center, and then about how to collect data and storage and making good decisions and stuff. Most of the sessions I attended on Monday and Tuesday were behavioral health crisis response systems and pretrial stuff. Since this was legislative session, most of my time was spent in my legislative meetings, and there weren't a ton of breakout sessions. And so that was kind of my NACO update. I realized that was kind of long, and then I was going to speak briefly on Monday. Dean and I attended the second organizational meeting for a leadership council that a group of people in Minnehaha County and Lincoln County are trying to put together. There was probably about 25 people there, and reviews the proposed resolutions and bylaws. The purpose of the council is kind of to serve the community through collaboration and identifying and prioritizing such strategies to improve the quality of life. There's a whole lot more to it than that. Hopefully we'll have our first official meeting later in late summer. Eventually this resolution will be coming to the commission and all other entities that were present at the table for signing, and it's not only government, but it's also businesses in Sioux Falls and the community. So it's kind of a large group of things. So that's my update. If you have any questions.
Okay.
I threw a lot at you.
Commissioner Karski.
Just quickly shoestring on to what Commissioner Heiberger was talking about with the Sioux Empire Leadership Council. I mean, this is formalizing collaboration between government and private enterprise. So I mean, we talk about it all the time. This is really making it happen. So it's a big deal. So, and you'll hear more about it. Earlier today, Commissioner Bender and I, 7:30, had our meeting with the Public Defender's Office. Happy to say that I think my impression, things are going very well over there. I'm trying to say they're fully staffed. They have all their positions filled or offers made, so they will be bringing, fully staffed up eventually. But the one hiccup maybe that they have is turnover still is a little bit high for especially the newer attorneys. So I think Tracy and Mike and her staff are doing a great job of addressing the issues, managing their budget well and managing their staff well. So I was very happy with the direction of the meeting. So that was my impression. I hope Commissioner Bender shares that impression. So.
All right, anything else? So, any new business? Item 20, any new business? Item 21, old business. Only thing I'd say in old business is I did have an opportunity to go up to Colton on Saturday for the open house for Leroy Koopman, and it was a great event. It's one of those events where you just renews your faith in America and small towns, and people really showed up, and it was great to honor Leroy Koopman and his legacy and his many years of service. So I just appreciate the invitation, and thanks for the folks that put that on. If there's no other old business, then I'd entertain a motion to recess.
Motion to recess.
Second.
Okay, so motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We'll take about a 10-minute break, and then we will reconvene and go into executive.